Time now for our news review as we dig into the papers, most of them here, and also talk about very topical. Good morning to you and thank you for your company.
Good morning. Good morning to all your viewers too.
I'm Ayao. So on Thursdays, it's all too exciting. So you become my partner. On which day were you born?
I was born on a Saturday actually, so I'm a Kwame.
Oh, I see. Okay. How is Kwame reacting to the latest fuel prices? I see over 10 CDs in some instances, 9 CDs in some instances, over 9 CDs. Fortunately, something nowadays, I know that every few days something could happen. So yesterday I just went for a top up. Thankfully, it was still a little under 9 CDs for me. Few days. But how do you react to the latest statistics when it comes to our fuel prices? I mean, nowadays every few days something is happening. What's your reaction?
Yeah. I mean, I think was it on 1st February? I made a Facebook post, and I predicted on I was on 1st February. Yes, I predicted that the price of fuel will pass 8 CDs or will break the 8, as we say these days. And I was saying that it would happen by the end of May or June. And I was also predicting that the dollar would also break the 8 around that time. At that time, the Ukrainian crisis, crystal ball, the way our precarious financial situation as a nation was, I had predicted it. And of course, a lot of people reacted that I was a naysayer and a professional Jeremiah. And I was given all sorts of negative accolades, but it was the truth, and it has even happened faster. And that for me was a vindication of my view. But it also meant that I prepared my mind for this to happen, because part of it is that you can only adjust by adjusting your lifestyle. So I don't use my big car anymore. We're all using tiny cars now. That's the first step, because you have to recognize the times and then act accordingly. So
right.
No more V6 engines. You drive the small cars everywhere. You realize that suddenly there's no need for so many face-to-face meetings if you can do everything virtually. And it saves time too, because then it means that you won't be in traffic. So me, for instance, what I would say is that if you are a driver or you still need to drive to places, avoid being in traffic. That's one, because that really takes out a lot of the fuel.
I recall yesterday I had to go somewhere. You don't expect it, but you fall into some traffic, and there are no alternative routes. The alternative routes are also packed. Oh yeah, damn. A route that would usually take me about 3 minutes to pass, I spent almost 30 minutes in there. There's nothing you can do, and you keep looking at the needle, and Charlie, you are hopeless, helpless.
I know, right? These days, the needle is a source of anxiety. I mean, like if you are driving, you're not even looking at the road anymore. You're just looking at. So me like this, my car always has an MPG. Like you see the number, you hit it once and then just let it coast. There's no need to test your speed skills or anything like that.
Right.
You just step once and then let it coast, so that at least you have it in the high high gears, and then small you move to it. But the point is, just reschedule all your meetings to time windows when there isn't much traffic. And these days, Google Maps can confuse you a bit, because sometimes some places try and schedule your meetings at places where you know that there wouldn't be heavy traffic, one. And then two, make sure that you have your meetings in a certain time window, or schedule all your external meetings and things like that for 1 or 2 days in the week. Then the rest of it, you try and stay put in some corner somewhere and then do your work. These days, we all have to we have to try and be smarter about how we manage our time also, on being in traffic or being in the middle of nowhere, knowing that where you are going to is not really going to benefit you that much. So
I guess, right. This also means a lot of virtual meetings where possible. I mean, COVID already started that move towards virtual and all of that. We really ought to be considering going virtual. It's not always necessary. I mean, you don't want to catch COVID
No.
and you don't want to burn too much fuel. So go virtual.
Absolutely. Even one of the things that I was going to post on Facebook today is that for most employers, if you really do not need a physical presence of some of your employees, or they are doing non-critical stuff, instead of forcing them to come to the office, this is the time for businesses to deploy digital solutions that allow for them to clock into work, do their work online. You give them an allowance for data, maybe 50 CDs or 100 CDs for data. And then they work from the house online. And you would realize that the employees too will be happy, because studies are even showing that people who are working from home, because they are more flexible and they are more relaxed, they are actually producing better deep into the night or early in the morning, knowing that they do not have to go through the hassle of spending 2 hours going to traffic in the morning, and then spending 2 hours coming back from traffic, and then they also are able to manage their homes. So I think it is time that we begin to understand that there's a new paradigm around your work life, and the employers should begin to embrace that. And also, it means that you probably do around, and then your company also can become more efficient with the right tools or mechanisms. And these are things that we need to really begin to look at, because employee welfare is also very important, because a lot of employers today cannot increase the salaries of their workers, but they still need the workers in to ensure that the company makes money day in, day out. And that's leeway for all of us to live efficiently.
So if you're catching us this morning, you're getting free tips you're not even paying for, but that's what you get when you join us on the AM show. Selon Brantier there telling you how you can get around managing fuel prices without breaking the bank. You might be interested in this right as we move on. So in the latest ranking when it comes to the most expensive countries in Africa to buy fuel, Ghana is right up there. We're even ahead of the likes of Rwanda, Senegal, Morocco, Burundi, South Africa, and Uganda. It's only Zimbabwe that is really, much higher. If you look at the rates, and this has even changed. The rates that was used to calculate this was Ghana's price pegged at $1.22 per liter. Okay, at the time for Zimbabwe, it was hovering around $2.15 per liter. But we all know about Zimbabwe's woes, economic woes, year after year. But now that it's hit even 9 cities and 10 cities plus in some instances, soon to hit 11 cities, I really don't know. I mean, it's obviously higher than $1.22, but at the same time, I don't know whether this is some form of comfort. On the BBC, we're told that, global prices have stabilized, sort of. They peaked at $130. Now they are falling. What we don't know, essentially, because in Ghana, when prices go down, they don't necessarily go down here. Once they go up, they are fixed. They remain there. What we don't know is whether this will affect prices here anyway. What do you think should happen? Very, very briefly on that.
So the thing about a lot of these countries you mentioned, Uganda, etc., I've been there before. I mean, these countries are landlocked. So the cost of freight or the cost of hauling fuel even to these countries is higher. That is why some of them have these high rates. Zimbabwe also has that issue because a lot of the truckers have to move from the coast of South Africa when they're refineries.
But our case is different.
Our case is different. In our situation, the government is not in a position to subsidize anything. Let's all face it, the government is broke. So we are not going to have any concessions, any subsidies from the government this year. What it means is that we are going to pay the raw price as it comes in. Unfortunately for us, our situation
But that's
is also
interesting.
different.
It's interesting you bring that in. Let me just chip in, because Andre Japa-Mercer, Deputy Energy Minister, has hinted that there just might be some decrements. In fact, taxes on fuel prices, about 3 of them. You think that's not
the best
reasonable?
That's the best they can do. That's the best they can do because we cannot subsidize fuel this year. I mean, nobody should think that the government is going to subsidize fuel. The best they can do is reduce the tax component, which I hear for a gallon of fuel, for example, I hear that, or for a liter of fuel, I think the tax component is about right around 1.8 to 2 cedis. I have to get the right figures, so I don't want to disinform the public. Whatever the case may be, If 1 liter is 10 cedis right now, the tax componentations, but then what it means is that it will also alleviate the suffering of a lot of consumers. And that's the best that the government can do at the moment. However, even if the oil prices go down, because what is happening is that the spike was because of Ukraine and the speculation, but now the market is correcting. That's how the experts call it. The market is correcting because now people are aligning the demand with the supply, et cetera, et cetera. So we are looking at a projected figure maybe in the next month or two where it will reach around 80, maybe 70, 80, 90, but let's say an average of Christmas levels on the world market. But we would not have a lot of respite because of the fact that our inflation is rising high, and also our dollar, our CD to dollar, rate is not going to, the downward spiral is not going to be halted anytime soon.
Right.
And therefore, it means that even if the prices go down, the dollar will still probably be hovering around 8 or 8 point something, right, which means that the CD value would remain.
And just to wrap, because we need to get into the papers, if we basically, one of the best ways, if we want fuel prices to go down, is to stabilize the CD. That's basically what you're saying. If the CD falls to a rate of about 5 CDs, like it was, 5 CDs to the dollar, like it was maybe some time back, then we can look at some good decrements.
Yes. That's
right?
the only way that's the only way we would have a decrease in prices. If they stay as they are, people need dollars to go and buy the crude. So if it stays as it is, it's still not going to change anything. So I don't think we should be too optimistic about oil price drops anytime soon.
In 53 towns, MEDA installs 360 transformers. There's also Ghana races to meet SDGs. Story on pages 16 and 17. Pictured there, Chief of Staff Akosua Frema Osei Opare. Then there's this one that I'd like to run by you before we get to the stories on page 13. 273 million Ghana cedis disbursed towards 1D, 1F. And that's according to the Minister of Trade and Industry, Alan Tremartin. It's interesting. The only problem is sometimes it's difficult disaggregating, unpacking them. Yesterday, I was interacting with Member of Parliament for Kwada, so Dr. Kingsley Nyako, and he was talking about Kasapreko, for example, being one of them, which was not taken lightly by Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, Member of Parliament for Southern, because we all know Kasapreko has been here with us. He talks about Ekumfi juice, of course, that they have come. What is your quick reaction to them, and are we getting value for money? Selon.
So we only hear the announcements, and then once in a while you would see a couple of news stories. For example, being a news station should probably have do a news story or a news series on the number of these the listed factories in this 1D, 1F, and where exactly they were, where they are now, and whether they are meeting the objectives of even the support that they've been given.
I guess that could be a challenge for our research desk.
Exactly, because one of the things that need to happen is that we would realize that there is nothing. Right. I'll give you an example. I went to Nsawam recently, and I think about 2-3 just before Christmas, there was this huge fanfare about the resurgence of Aztec as a producing fruits, etc.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that news story. I would like to ask your team to go there today or tomorrow and go and see what the truth is on the ground. And we would clearly understand how some of these things work. The issue here is that a lot of these festivals were being written was that they were going to create new industries that were going to employ new people. However, it is good that a lot of the older factories or industries are being revived. But the point is that in Ghana, we have a poor maintenance culture. We have a poor follow-up culture. So we like to throw money at a project and then leave it to hang. I mean, there's ample evidence of that all around. Right. And therefore, this 1D, 1F thing has also fallen into the same trap with nice things. And then once we leave, everything is left to its fate, whether it is management of the project, whether it is the resources that are required, whether it's the provision of the right amenities. all of that is left for the devil to care about. And so you have a lot of situations where these so-called industries have been abandoned to the whims of however it's being managed. So I
Right.
think there has to be managerial input beyond just throwing to the management, efficiency, and sustainability aspect of these programs.
Let's look into two more stories on page 13. Very quickly, I'll put the two of them together. 3 killed, 3 soldiers wounded from Bawku gunshots. And the escalating violence in Bawku suffered more casualties yesterday when 3 people died and 5 others were injured. The casualties were recorded during an exchange of fire between soldiers and some residents of Babari Bwabula, a suburb of the troubled Upper East regional town. Now, in the exchanges, Selom, which went on for some hours, a 9-year-old boy, a 16-year-old girl said to be a student, and an elderly, usually you have them, and especially in the northern part of the country, you would see that in the last few months or so, these skirmishes and all of that, young people, very young people at the prime of their lives, are either getting killed or maimed. And you ask yourself, when are we going to stem the tide of all of this? Bawku has been boiling for decades. We've still not got it right. Your take?
Yeah, it's sad that in all of this, it's the little children that are really, becoming casualties. Not even that, you're talking about the fact that some of these regions are also some of the most poorly resourced. I have not tried to acquaint myself very clearly with the root causes of some of these conflicts. But I think it is time that
chieftaincy, land, among others,
yeah,
sometimes very trivial disagreements, but yes, you cannot take anything as trivial in these cases. You must,
in
you
these
must, you
times,
must
yes.
deal with the root causes and continue.
We have to deal with the root causes, yes. If it means having some kind of a dialogue between the chiefs and what do you call it? Their colleagues, the paramount chiefs and their colleagues, as well as the government and religious leaders, for example. We need to do that. We need to have that negotiation. We need to have that sit down with all of the parties concerned, because I'm sure that there are different factions, there are different parties, and then we need to have them work towards a kind of ceasefire or a cessation of hostilities to ensure that some kind of dialogue is taking place to fix the situation. I believe that in all of this, if there is
Right.
clear dialogue and there are clear targets as to what needs to be done to preserve the peace, we should do it, because we cannot have this going on and then affecting economic activity in the region, which would also lead to poverty. I mean, in any place where there is this kind of instability, I mean, we only have poverty being rampant, and we cannot afford that now. Every Ghanaian needs the chance to be able to live in an environment that is peaceful. We
Right.
have a peaceful dispensation, and therefore we should not really allow a lot of these things to brew. Whether
Okay.
there are, there should be an independent inquiry into this immediately, and that independent inquiry should be truthful about the causes and should outline very clear steps for dialogue to mediate some of these issues.
Staying
And
on
if we
page.
need to bring in, you say?
I thought you had landed there. Have you?
Yeah.
Right.
If we
Stay,
need to bring in people, we should bring them in to resolve this.
Staying on page 13, stop publishers from printing textbooks offshore. That's according to the executive director of the Ghana Printers and Paper Converters Association, that is the GPPCA, William Turkson. And he is basically saying that apart from the creation of jobs, printing these textbooks in Ghana locally would improve the standard of living in the country and also boost the morale of players in the industry. Mr. President recently spoke about this development, stating that exactly that is going to be done. But what is the reality? I'm sure you know, and for anyone who publishes, I do, that printing sometimes in the likes of China and even outside is cheaper than printing in Ghana, and sometimes the quality is even better. But at the same time, doing so means that you are stifling the local publishing industry. What do you think about this?
I think sometimes we need to bite the bullet and do certain things. In our secondary school days, we had popular printers like, I think, Zomatic Ideas, Prof and Figures, all of that. they would not have thrived, or their industries would not have thrived, or their contribution to education would not have thrived if we depended solely on foreign printers, for example. I believe that in the knowledge space in Ghana, we are not doing ourselves a lot of favors because we are not encouraging local publishers enough. And even the kind of reading material that we offer, unfortunately, we do not have a policy that targets these local publishers and assess their real contribution to the economy or Ghana's knowledge economy. And yes, printing quality might not be as good as printing from China, etc. But if we want to grow and sustain the local publishing and printing industry, we need to sometimes take some of these measures just to ensure that the money stays in. And also create new jobs and new opportunities for others and encourage others to also come into the industry. But when we do everything foreign like that, then it means that even the little cash that can stay here and keep certain industries alive would not exist. How would we be able to invest in newer, more powerful and better printers if we do not give the local printers the chance to actually do some of these things? And that's the thing. It's about investment. Because of poor investment in the field, people would not be able to make their return on investment if they go and bring expensive printers that cost $1 million or so, because they know that people will not even come and print, and then they cannot get their money back. So then we are stifling the local industry by doing some of these things. So this is what we need to do. We need to just have a policy around local publishing and then follow through with it, and then prevent more digital machines instead of using the old manual machines that have been there for 30 years or more.
Daily Guide newspaper, ECG to disconnect major institutions. I was mentioning yesterday that the Finance Ministry owes about 421,000 cedis. The KIA even more. But Terminal 3, of course, not affected. They will allow it to run. Adaklu gets DCE. That's with the Daily Guide newspaper. Quickly to the Business Finder. It says Gexim backs VIPEAC. You want details, check them out on page 7. NAP Provident Fund to scale up membership drive. That's according to the board. And Kwewu Easter Paragliding Festival is back in the midst of COVID. How is that going to be managed? The Daily Statesman newspaper. Technician jailed 10 years over woman's nude video. 3 soldiers shot at Bawku. 2 million Ghana cedi bail for Baka Vomawo, and government denies any hand in embassy. The Ghanaian Times newspaper. At Kofi Annan Road Safety Award, President decries road accidents, declares it a global pandemic. I remember using the word pandemic to describe road accidents, and people felt it was. But anyway, global pandemic, right. We've lost 400, and if I get it correctly, if memory serves, 69 people. There's also the bit about Oliver Baka Vomawo, Mausi, and what he's gone through in getting bail. And as of the time I left off yesterday, 2 million Ghana cedi bail, landed property, people to sign and all of that, but he hadn't left the precincts of the police cells, or at least the custody he was in. These two stories, carnage on our roads and what has happened with Baka Vomawo. Your quick thoughts in a minute, if you can.
Yeah, the carnage of our roads needs to be addressed. It could be me or you tomorrow. I mean, the issue here is that there are so many reasons or causes for some of these accidents, especially, I think it was a couple of days ago, it was sad that some students of the University of Winneba were in a bus that crashed into a stationary vehicle, for example. We need to be, I nearly crashed into one sometime. These trucks are a menace, especially when they are in, dark curves on the highway. And by the time you would realize they are there, it's almost too late. And the issue here is that we need to have, apart from just the police patrolling the roads, we need to have a certain, some highway watchers who will be able to patrol these roads, especially in the evenings. Okay. And then if these guys do not have the necessary triangles and indicators, at least some lighting should be put in front of these cars. Okay. That alone would save quite a lot of lives, because a lot of times you would not see anything, and then you would realize just before impact that there's a car that has stopped in front of you, and you are doing about 60, 70 kilometers per hour. and then your reaction time, depending on who you are and what kind of car you use, could determine whether you would live or die.
Okay. On Oliver, very quickly, 30 seconds.
On Oliver, it is very clear that the process is being abused by certain people for whatever whims that they choose. And it is a cautionary tale that all those who think that this is a positive thing should note that the same way this is being done with impunity to Oliver and the threat to his freedoms could be done to any of us by anyone who sad for me that the Ghana police, in trying to handle his custody, is also culpable in the way in which they have acted around all of these. And it is making the thing a circus. And it is not very amusing for a lot of us who are observing, because it could be any of us being run by someone who has put himself out, or who says he comes from a heritage where rule of law is observed. We have watched the abuse of a lot of these procedures right from the beginning till now, and it's still continuing. And
Right.
this trend, for me, shows what we need is a united nation to be able to confront the problems ahead, and not these divisive activities, which only serve to show that certain people are just trying to do this to show someone a lesson, which is very, very unfortunate.
Salam. Akbakata. You bring out the ever in me. Do you have a good... Next, we have sports, and the Babayara Sports Stadium, going to host that fixture between Ghana and Nigeria. But what do we have to do? More details as we come your way.